Bullet so often with them. And that's kind of where Kvalifar was last season. He was kind of that player that we didn't really talk about a ton. He was just a consistently good, you knew what to expect from him. He was always going to be steady in the lane. And now, obviously, Kvalifar has stepped up a bit. TechnoJJ needs to match.
Honestly, I feel like a lot of that is the update coming on through. I feel like carries are a much more influential role on 2.8 than they were on 2.7. Look at this Blackfeather and Celeste ban, and then a Vox first pick. Totally different to what we've been seeing.
This is what we call the Vainglory8 meta development throughout the weekend. We started with prioritization on the roamers, and now look at it. Blackfeather and Celeste bans, all the roamers are open, and still Vox gets picked, and then Idris is just a completely different story than what we've seen before.
Yeah, this is very surprising, and obviously now the captains are likely to be focused here with these next couple of bans, just because you have to be worried if you're the side of Fnatic. If SK bans one of those two power picks, either the Catherine or the Grace, you need to take the other one off the board because you cannot give Idris and one of those top three captains.
I would love to see SK ban either Grace or Catherine to force Fnatic to ban the other and then pick up Cruel, or even pick up Petal to deny the Cruel. I would prefer to see Cruel just because he combines so well with the CP Idris. If they play to that strength of protect the carry, and CP Idris is an amazing carry late game, they can do really well.
Certainly can. Looking towards these bans, I'm curious to see if we see any captain bans at all this late on into the draft, or whether it has to go towards jungles. Catherine is going to be taken off the board here. Fnatic have to decide where they want to go. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a Grace taken off the board, honestly, because Grace just can be so influential.
Yeah, like Iraqi Zero said, if they do ban away the Grace, then SK can grab the Krull if they'd like. It is going to be the Lyra, so now Grace is open, and if they just grab the Grace here, it's Idris Grace. This is such a strong composition that you used to only see on A side because it wasn't possible to get it on the B side. But because of the way that the meta has shifted already this week, it is going to come out. But here's that Fortress proc attempt.
Yeah, this is that classic that we've seen. We've only seen it, I think this is the third time, but it has the potential to be an incredibly powerful composition, but very high on required execution.
Yeah, it really does, and it's also going to depend on what builds Fnatic you choose to go for. I do expect the double TT coming out of Vox, at least I hope, so that he can proc the bleeds from Fortress a little bit faster. The thing is, SK can still pick up Cruel here. I would prefer to see them not pick it, exactly, because that would be a really tough matchup for him to go up against the Vox and the Fortress. Samuel is better at kiting, so this is going to be an Idris weapon power, most likely. It's a completely different style than if you had a CP Idris.
Yeah, very different composition to... I don't think we've seen this composition, actually, across the course of this season just yet. So with the Grace instead of a Lyra alongside the Samuel, they have some sustain in these fights, but it's more that burst sustain. It's more likely going on to the Idris as he tries to dive on into the backline. So how are we anticipating this game plays out, especially in the early game here?
For the early game, it's going to be incredibly intense because both sides are really going to want to get that early advantage. They want to get their first couple of items. The 2 to 3 item spike for both of these laners is going to be absolutely massive.
I agree, and once SK has their power spike with Idris' Sora Blade, if he's going for that, they're going to be able to apply so much lane pressure if Samuel comes up. I hope to see them do that.
All right, we'll see if they can bring that to pass. It's time to head into our finals, though, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know whether you want Fnatic or SK to take this one. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter. But it's about time we jumped on into our final and finished off the first week of the European Vainglory8. Let's pass it back to Dowsy and the Source.
You heard Munchables. Who's it going to be? SK or Fnatic? Get your cappas ready in chat. This is a huge matchup coming into the first week of the Vainglory8. And Fnatic looking like they want to go straight on into SK. A level 1 fight breaking out. Tet-to-let. Bit of a trouble, but Fnatic have disengaged. Now looking to re-engage just a little bit, but I think SK are very confident. They want to go forward and do even more damage. Look at Net-to-Let. Look at Power Toro so low. Popping their healing fast. Tyras, though, has been left with TechnoJJ. SK fighting on 3 fronts. They need to find a single target. It's going to be this Treant, their single target, and they're going to look to steal it away.
Yeah, good steal away by SK, and that team fight getting kind of split. It looked like the members of Fnatic, well, at least Palmator and Net-to-Let, they wanted them to come in. They were taking a bunch of extra damage, trying to bait the side of SK as far forward as humanly possible, and then use those healing flasks to then win the team fight. But TechnoJJ was too far away from them to really make that a reality. and he could not step into that bush. He goes into that bush, and Cavalifar would have cut him to pieces. So good by Techno JJ to survive through that, but I think Fnatic might have been a little over-eager with their composition, which doesn't have a massive amount of damage just yet. And you're looking at, some of the burst that Grace has, which, people tend to forget about. You've got huge damage out of Cavalifar, and even if it was only level 1 for Samuel, you don't want to be getting hit by the Malice and Verdict. The sustain is going to be there. Wasn't a good fight for Fnatic. I'm surprised that they were willing to take it that far.
Yeah, no, the level 2 power spike for Fnatic is so much more strong. Look at this. SK are saying that our level 2 is pretty good as well. Wow, the damage from Tyra's heralded as the best Samuel in EU. He's showing up so far. Gonna steal that away from Palmatoro. And now Palmatoro's in a bit of trouble himself. Drifting Dark up in just a second. He's gonna pop it. Look perhaps for Netolet as well. First blood to Tyra's. Netolet just about gets away. SK so much early aggression, and Fnatic failing to deal with it.
Yeah, I think Fnatic was caught a little unawares that SK would be willing to fight them that hard, that deep. And now we have the same situation that we saw last game, just the roles have been reversed. Cavalifar had the lane super far pushed up. It wasn't safe for Techno JJ to step too far forward. Had to worry about that gank coming in. And then Tyres and Hegman just had a good time just moving throughout the jungle. Now we're going to get Samuel, much further forward, is sitting on a decent chunk of gold. Won't have that Frostburn just yet, but that's going to show up very, very soon.
And I love the fact that this is the second time that SK have faced up against this Vox, Fortress and Lance composition. G2 playing it in the semi-final, and SK knew exactly how to deal with it, seeming like they've kind of figured things out. In fact, they're going double crystal power here today with this composition. Cavalifar has himself a heavy prison, has that crystal bit. We're going to see double CP out of SK, and I think that Idris is possibly one of the heroes that you can actually get away with doing this with.
Yeah, the damage is high enough, the mobility is there, you're able to kite throughout the fight, and even though there, you could run into, okay, we've scaled only into one type of damage, the amount of shielding that can be built up by individual targets isn't that great. You're looking at 2 items total, and if everybody's picking up a second fountain, then you're running really, really low when it comes to dealing additional damage. You're going to have to. Cavalifar is probably going to go into 4 item damage spike, and we can already see that the siege is here with all the damage that Tyres can output.
Wow, the siege from Tyra's is so huge, and we do see that Palmatoro is looking to try and pick up that tension bow first item, so really taking inspiration. Ooh, no, JJ almost loses his life. This turret's gonna go down. SK just gonna take it away, and look at Hegman looking for the kill, doesn't quite find it, but Netolet is gonna struggle to escape. Tyra's aim finds Techno JJ, 2-0 to him, and now SK are gonna look to move on in and try and steal away this jungle as well.
Yep, Palmatoro in a tricky position is going to try and fight the Crystal Sentry at his back.
Sentry almost dead. The Malice and Verdict's actually missing. Tyra's rooted on up. He might just be bursted to death. He is. SK, a mistaken aggression. And now they have to be careful because the rest of Fnatic are rounding the corner. Palmatoro to charge. Techno JJ onto Cavalifar. And he will go down. Hegman, can he escape? I think he shall. But a bit of aggression comes out of SK that Fnatic are able to match.
And Fnatic need to capitalize as much as they can right now. Although these traps are doing a little bit of damage. I think Netolet got a little over-aggressive. Hegman will not be able to reset up that vision. But Fnatic, they need to take what they just got there. They are down 3k gold off of farm, off of the Crystal Sentry going down, off of that first turret. They need to slow it down a bit, find some more of those items. We've got Techno JJ with nothing but a poison ship. Yes, that's nice having that ability to kind of shut down some of Tyra's sustains there. That's nowhere near the damage they're going to need. And Tyra's is dishing it out, has that Frostburn, has the slows.
Netolet is so low. Does get the healing from the Treant. It's just enough to keep him alive from those Malice and Verdict's Tyras are outputting. Double Frostburn coming out of SK for the kite. I will be very happy to see a double CP composition work. If SK can manage this, then it's going to really change the way we look at the draft, I think, in 2.8.
Palmatoro's gone for the tension bow, so maybe going for a little bit on hit. That's actually a really good impale. Good Githian wall to follow up. And now here's the counter engaging.
Look at Tyros, the damage he outputs with the Malice and Verdicts. Crystal Sentry has a minion candy and SK immediately turn around. It's doing so much damage and Valafar gets bursted by that tension bow. Palmatora likely to get himself an Aftershock next. How I'm the Doom played it against Fnatic in yesterday's games. Currently SK though, down the lead by 2,500 gold.
Yeah, SK, for the moment, they can slow things down, farm up their side of the jungle. Tyrus is getting towards that broken myth. I definitely think Valafar, sitting on a good chunk of gold, will either go into his own broken myth or maybe into that alternating current as we normally would see, but they just have so much burst right now. They're able to dish out so much damage, and there's only, well, there's a little bit of shield on Netalet, but Palmatora is starting to build his own Aegis, and maybe they start to survive these fights a little bit longer. But, I mean, as those broken myths start to come out, I would worry if I were the side of Fnatic. Need a perfect game, this might be it.
Valafar able to escape for now, is kiting back. Tyra has so much damage, Palmatora almost dead. Tyra's moving forward, Techno JJ trying to lay down the damage, but it's Netalet to die. And will SK charge forward? Hegman dives on forward, looking for Techno. He is getting slowed down by the double Frostburn. And Tyra's to take the kill. SK looking to take the second Crystal Sentry life as well. A huge gold lead accumulated for them, 3,000 at the 7-minute mark, and there's nothing that Fnatic can do about it.
There isn't enough crowd control on the side of Fnatic. They cannot lock down Tyras for long enough. That was a good opening. You had the Impale Githian wall basically into the shop. We'll get to see this again off of the replay. Netalet is looking for it, gets the single Impale, knocks Cavalifar into the side, but nobody is onto Tyras, and Cavalifar is able to just jump away with the Glimmer Strike. Then you see the instant turn, the damage starts to come through, and Tyras... Wait, that got stolen?
Netalet stole the gold miner from SK. That's a huge amount of gold. I think 1,200 full gold payout going over to Fnatic. Gonna bridge the gap just slightly.
That's definitely going to be good for the side of Fnatic, but they need to find a much better team fight, and the damage is going to start to be there for Cavalifar. He's got 1,200 gold. Isn't enough for him to finish any other major items, but he'll be on that second tier 3 item by 10 minutes, and I dare say that Tyres will probably be there as well. And then there's just going to be so much damage. And these fights are going long, which is going to make these broken myth stats build up for Tyrus very quickly.
Yeah, I just wish Cavalifar maybe changing up his build, going for the broken myth second. We've seen in competitive games you can have success on Idris if you go broken myth second rather than the alternating current. I just think it would have been far more beneficial for the team if he'd picked up that broken myth rather than the alternating current. Tyras is going towards his second, has the goal to go complete it now. SK's still in a fairly good spot, you know, they just need to get Cavalifar to the broken myth, and they've done exactly what they need to do. The Aegises haven't been completed yet for the side of Fnatic, which means that perhaps the broken myths aren't quite necessary. SK looking to charge forth down this lane.
I thought they might have engaged on the side of Netalet, but they can just set up the siege, which is how this initial gold lead started to build up. And it's very, very difficult. Techno JJ, he's on the Vox, it's that middling range. You need to be kind of in the fight, kiting just outside melee range. Netalet hasn't been able to fully secure that for them. And although, yes, Attack of the Pack could let them get far enough into the backline, they have to do it pretty much instantly, because as soon as that Drifting Dark Malice and Verdict combo comes out from Tyrus, he will just start to kite back. The Frostburn will be there, and then on top of that, you also have Cavalifar's Frostburn. It's so difficult to pin down these damage dealers from the side of SK. And I mean, you know, Hegman hasn't been doing anything crazy, but he's been doing his job. You also have to deal with the additional CC coming out from the Grace, so it's just a matter of time before SK get too strong, I think, for Fnatic to deal with, unless Fnatic can really stem the flow of momentum for the side of SK.
Well, we do see that the Aegis has been completed. On to Techno JJ and Palmatora. Does mean that Palmatora is lacking in damage on this fortress. Hasn't had the gold income yet to complete his Aftershock. Cavalifar has that piercing shard for himself. The broken myth is online for Tyras. Cavalifar going to need to build up some income if he wants to get that Broken Myth. Look at the damage though that the Frostburn outputs. It's a super engaged composition Fnatic have here with the Fortress and the Vox. They're able to charge forward, but with double Frostburn, so much slowing is provided that allows Fnatic to, SK to kite and to let they just lose his life here. Pops the fountain, just about escapes. But Tyra's going to continue stacking up this Broken Myth. 6 stacks, and the attack of the pack disengaged by Hegman. Nothing that they can do at this point. 8 Broken Myth stacks, 9 onto Tyra's, and this turret is dead. Hegman wants to re-engage the Malice and Verdict onto Palmatoro, but I think they've just about got out of the sights of SK, and now SK can move back. Don't have to do too much to this turret. Kavalifa has to be careful he doesn't overcommit here, but here comes Tyra's back into the front line to provide the threat SK needed.
Yeah, and now SK, they can put pressure onto this 3rd Crystal Sentry. It will be down. We're having just really fast Crystal Sentry kills here in these last few games. It has been eliminated 12 minutes into the game, and I just don't know how Fnatic are going to be able to get through what is basically a wall of siege and barrage. There's all of these skill shots that are coming out. They can. It's basically like walking into a firing squad from the side of SK. A firing squad that can constantly walk backwards and kite you. And there just hasn't been an opportunity, there hasn't been an opening for Fnatic to find that hard engage that they would like from Net2Let. And we saw last game, Net2Let did a really good job of finding those double Githian walls. He's got his Echo now, so he can make that happen. But he needs the rest of his team to be there with him. And I also don't know if TechnoJJ has the damage. He's got a breaking point and a poison chip. There's no Sorrow Blade there.
And this is incredible. Broken Myth now completed for Kavalifa. We've got the best Samuel in Europe on Tyra's. Potentially the best CP Idris on Kavalifa. Yet to be confirmed, I think. But currently he's making a case for himself here in the autumn season. Now they've got their Broken Myths. Those Aegises almost going to do nothing. TechnoJJ's committing to a 2nd shielding item, may even go for a fountain just to provide extra healing. I think Palmatoro might be wise to do the same. Triple fountain gives that double shielding item that the team needs, but wow. Currently SK have full control over the game. The Crystal Sentry eliminated, and it's only a matter of time until the Kraken joins us.
Yeah, I mentioned the possibility that you take that fountain, but it's going to cut down on TechnoJJ's damage for a while. He has built up the heavy steel, does have a little bit more damage there, will eventually get that Sorrow Blade, but that's just such a slowdown and just a heavy adaptation, and shows how much SK is dictating the pace of this game and what is going to happen. Palmatoro is low.
Look at the damage that he's taking through the Aegis as well. It's disgusting. Look at the stacks on Kavalifa. TechnoJJ, the fountain forced to keep him alive. And Fnatic, they are forced right back into their base. SK gonna chip at this turret. So much damage comes out of the Chakram as it flies on through. 1 more Chakram, 2 more auto attacks. That turret is dead. And SK are gonna look to try and take it on this rotation here. They've got the Broken Myth starting to stack up. They've got Net2Let just providing all of that. The Chakram going through. And all it needs is 2 more auto attacks from Kavalifa, and that turret is gone. Nothing that Fnatic can do apart from hard engage onto SK, but the Broken Myths are already starting to stack up. Hegman goes on in, looks for the knock-up. This Oblivion puts TechnoJJ to sleep, and Kavalifa going to launch damage right at him. Divine Intervention keeps Kavalifa alive. Palmatoro's dead. TechnoJJ, he's dead as well. It's only going to be Net2Let left to save the base, because there's no escaping Tyras in that scenario. And now the minions can work at this turret, but it's likely SK don't even go for it now. The Kraken, she spawned, and SK gonna want to take her.
SK have just dominated this game pretty much from the get-go. It's, you know, that first initial fight they were willing to step in as 3. They won what was a positional team fight, and we'll get to look at this one more time. So Fnatic had done a really good job of defending this turret for a little while. They had managed to slow things down a bit. They used the additional attack speed. Out comes the attack of the pack. They're forced to use 1 of the Crucibles to block out all that Oblivion, but there's just so much damage from the side of SK that if they don't manage to get onto Tyra's initially, which I don't think they ever have, except for maybe once they managed to actually put some pressure onto him and get that kill, it's just such a struggle for the side of Fnatic to be able to break through what is SK playing an incredibly well-coordinated set of team fighting.
I just love the fact that Europe has kind of taken It's just been so much debate. North America, Shatterglass on Idris every time, no questions. But Europe's like, hey, you know, I think Frostburn can work. And at the moment, I can't disagree. SK are just showing up so huge. Eggman dives on in. That's going to be the Oblivion blocked up, but Tyros isn't ready to output the damage. Techno JJ in trouble as Kavalifar rips on through, takes him down with the Chakram, and Netalet will follow him to the death timer screen. It's only Palmatoro left alive. Double CP and EU working up huge, and Palmatoro trying his best to save the base, but he goes down to Kavalifar. An ace for SK. Game 1 here. A double CP win. What is 2.8?
It's an interesting time to be in Vainglory. We've got the best CP Idris, the best Samuel in EU. I think they've made a solid case for it. If they win out week 1, SK will have shown significant dominance. Let's throw this back over to the desk.
The double CP composition coming up true right there. Fantastic performance coming out from SK Gaming. Honestly, looking dominant. They were the favorites coming in. They were Seed 1. They had an amazing job at Championship, and now they're living up to their names as well. My name is Munchables. I'm joined once again by Tasty Bacon and Iraqi Zora, and let's pull that game apart a little bit because, you know, it started fairly evenly. It was 2-2 on the scoreboard, but then SK seemed to just grab hold of everything.
Yeah, it just seemed like Fnatic just couldn't actually contest them on these objectives. Like, SK was rotating so well and just taking anything they wanted. It wasn't even like they were getting blown out in kills because there weren't many kills. I mean, it was 6-2 when the game was coming towards a close, but SK had just such a massive lead that they had managed to build up by that point.
Yeah, and the reason why they were able to get that lead was their composition. We saw the double CP, which is very controversial, but against this Fortress comp of having to dive in and get kills, a Kite comp with longer range does great. And you can see they continuously siege turrets and got the first turret down by 4 minutes. That's very, very fast for any Vainglory game. And after that, they continued their aggression and they just played to the advantage that they had. Use your range and kite back when they have to engage on you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see them battling it out in the early game, and Palmatoro doing his best to defend that Crystal Sentry, but so difficult with the damage going out from SK.
Yeah, the damage going out, and obviously SK also knew that they had already gotten a kill. It was going to be a 3-on-2. Even with the Crystal Sentry being there, that's still a fight that they are more than happy to take. And like Zoro said, it's just they're able to kite away with this crystal power that they have. The ability to just build up those stacks. Once the Broken Myth came out onto Samuel, it suddenly became that much more difficult. And then obviously, once Idris gets his as well, there's just nothing that they can do. Those double Frostburns guaranteed that anytime they tried to go in, they were going to be getting slowed up. And it's just that in hard engaged style that is kind of forced by that composition just gets completely negated.
Yeah, and there was a fight around the 15-minute mark over the Kraken that was a significant fight in this game, and one where it started to actually crack the game open a little bit as Fnatic looking to engage.
Yeah, you can see they're continuously sieging turret like we just mentioned, and when Fnatic tries to engage, they just kite back, like Grace be on the front line, and Samuel and Idris sit on the back line just dealing the damage without taking any of the damage that Fnatic are putting back. And you can see just a regular cleanup at that point, getting one kill after another. Lance ends up escaping, but it doesn't matter because they get 2 kills and then they get the third turret after that.
Yeah, and managed to push that advantage, and that's the thing we always circle back on, is the better teams, when they get those kills, they turn it into advantages, they turn it into objectives, and by 12 minutes in that game, all 3 Crystal Sentries had been eliminated by SK Gaming. That's the amount that they were pushing each and every single advantage that they managed to get. We do have another replay of this game where SK continued to just push these advantages, and this is right towards the end of the game.
Yeah, and you can see pushing with Kraken for the final push of the game, it's only 6-2. Like, they did all of this work by just putting that pressure onto the lane, knowing that this composition from Fnatic could not answer the siege. There's not great wave clear there, and this final fight was just kind of a microcosm of the entire game. Just too much damage on the side of SK. They had too big of a lead for Fnatic to deal with.
They certainly did, and then SK managed to finish things off. Obviously, Palmatoro doing his best to contest that, but not a whole lot you could do in that situation. So Fnatic are going to go down in that first one. SK with a very strong first game. And now we have to look at the rest of this series because, honestly, Fnatic, this aggressive composition that we've seen come out from them didn't really work out the way that they wanted.
Probably draft is the most interesting part about this entire series. We saw in that first game, Fnatic drafted a pretty strong comp, and it was into the right for conditions first, but then SK with the last pick, they pick up Samuel, they complete their strategy, and they counter the composition coming from Fnatic. So the draft is where it's all happening. I've been fairly impressed with Fnatic so far today with their draft. They need to step it up just another notch because this is SK they're going up against.
Yeah, and I mean, SK have been looking fantastic across the course of this weekend, and with a 1-0 lead, they're looking fantastic in this series. Fnatic have got their work cut out, but the mind games came out while they were on B-side against Dynasty, so maybe they got something up their sleeves when it comes to this draft.
Yeah, well, we've seen these teams kind of adapting their draft strategies to what has been strong and what's been working earlier today. It continues here with Glaive and Idris being the first bans. SK says, you know what, we'll just go right back to the way things were, grab that Grace as a first pick, although that does leave the Catherine as an option for Fnatic.
Another thing it leaves is they can pick Celeste and ban Blackfeather, which is another strategy we've seen teams do. It could, yeah, that's just what happened. And then now SK have to either ban Catherine or Lyra. Fnatic, if they wanted, they can pick one or the other, or they could still pick Cruel, who synergizes really well with Celeste, as we've mentioned before.
So tough choice now for SK. They have to decide what they feel like would synergize the most with that Celeste and take that off the board, or just what they feel like will counter whatever they have planned. This thing being right now on B side, I think gives you a pretty sizable advantage when it comes to the kind of mind games aspect of the draft, just because you have that counter pick available. With the Catherine banned away, Fnatic I think should go for their captain here, or something that can be flexed just to kind of keep things open, and that's exactly what they do with this Lance. Can go down to Nettoilette, can go into Palmatoro's hands. You kind of assume it's going to be Nettoilette. Palmatoro doesn't have a large track record of playing this Lance, but the possibility is there.
Yeah.
It certainly is. They are going to lock that Lance in, and that's two forms of CC that they can now chain together as well for Fnatic. And now SK, they have a few decisions to make. Obviously, Grace, very versatile. You can fit it into the majority of compositions, so there are a few directions
I wonder if SK will go back to the Sky Weapon Power here. Sky Weapon Power or Jewel. These are the two other lane characters that they have been successful on this weekend, besides Idris and Celeste. So Sky Weapon Power would work great against Celeste and Lance because of how much early pressure she can output, and because she can dance around their skill shots.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love to see that.
And it would be the second time that we see Kvalifar lock that in. There is going to be the Sky pick. We'll see whether it's going to be CP just yet, with the final pick coming on through as well. Because we saw a few Skies yesterday that we thought were going to be Weapon Power Skies and then ended up in a CP position. We'll see. Kvalifar was the one that did play at Weapon Power yesterday, though.
Yeah, and you got to figure they're going to lean that way because it can get onto the backlines. You can Surrey Strike over the top of everything and get onto the Celeste. You usually will end up seeing another dive type hero, but it's going to be the Batiste. So this is a little bit of the anti-mobility, kind of maybe a preemptive pick for whatever they think Fnatic might take as their final hero. Kroll would have, I think, been a big option, but you Kroll into Batiste is a matchup that can be fairly tough for the Kroll just because of how much CC is there.
I think what would synergize with Fnatic's comps the best is either Cruel, like you just mentioned, or Lyra still available and play Lance in the jungle. That would work amazingly if this was G2, but this is Fnatic, and I don't... Palmatoro is not a great jungle Lance, at least he hasn't played it much, so I don't quite expect it. So it might be the Cruel. Other than that, they don't have too many options since Glaive is already off the table.
It's obviously Blackfeather being taken off the board and Glaive as well already strangles the weapon power jungle pool quite.
Something that they could do is go for Scarf jungle. Palmatoro plays that great. Play the double CP that you just played against with Celeste and Scarf. The only problem with that is that Sky would just be dancing all over the team fight and you wouldn't be able to land anything on her.
There's also multiple ways that SK could stop a Dragon's Breath with their composition, so it would be a risky pick for sure. They could also just go completely off meta, but looks like they are gonna have, we're gonna have to wait a little bit.
Choose to not choose anything.
Yeah, it's there is a known issue with the draft client that can cause these kinds of issues, so hopefully we'll get their pick in shortly.
So apparently the pick is confirmed. It's going to be a Kestrel coming on through to
Kestrel.
round out the Fnatic composition. Interesting one there. Are we thinking that's going to be a weapon power Kestrel coming in?
If that's a weapon power Kestrel in lane and swapping the CP Kestrel or CP Celeste to the jungle, that would work well for holding off the aggression coming up, out from Sky, and would kind of even up the lane matchup.
Yeah, it would make things very, very interesting. I would expect it to actually be in the lane, because if you put it in the jungle, usually Kestrel in the jungle is a CP, and the way that this composition for SK Gaming works, it would be extremely difficult to get those active camo traps to be effective in a team fight, because they're not really going to be like all-in diving. The Sky is going to be kind of floating around the sides of the team fight a bit, and then obviously Batiste isn't going to be trying to chase onto you at all.
Yeah.
So I would expect this to be the weapon Kestrel in the lane, which is going to make a really fun matchup between the Kestrel and the Sky.
Yeah, I have to ask the question then, who's going to be the one on the front foot? Because once again, it feels like SK, they're the ones that are drafting these more aggressive compositions.
I do like SK's draft better. I think they can output more aggression early on and try to get a lead from it, but Fnatic's composition can get rolling later on because you have so much longer range when it comes to your team fighting advantage. If they use that and use the lance to just peel away the carries, it could work for them.
All right, well, it's time to get on into this game. Hashtag Vainglory8. Let us know whether you think Fnatic can pull themselves back into this series or if SK is going to 2-0 the first week of this Vainglory8. It's time to get into the finals. It's time to pass it to Dowsy and the Source.
No, it's...
Wow, this is going to be an interesting game here, Source. We're looking at the players. Palmatoro on weapon power, Kestrel in the jungle, it seems. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I was like, oh, is that going to be CP? Is that going to be weapon? And then they swap it up, and I figured that would end up being in the lane. So, Techno JJ going to be able to continue to play the Celeste and instant invasion from the side of SK. They should be able to steal this one away, and they're just not going to let up on the aggression. It's like game one never ended.
Yeah, no, I like this as well. Netalet immediately moving into the backs here because he knows that SK are likely to try and take away this middle treant. Means he should be able to secure the 2 back camps. He does. Gonna get these doubles. That's a lot of gold stolen away from Tyros, 162, and that scout trap basically gonna tell Tyros it's gone. He gets the bad news that his backs were stolen, and it means that that 1 camp stolen by SK really means nothing.
Yeah, the just that steal away isn't going to give them a whole lot, and then they also sent both of their members up into the lane, so they're not spending that much time in the jungle. That's a huge combo!
Wow, first blood goes over to Techno JJ, and this is scary times for Kavalifar. Made weapon power Sky work nicely in yesterday's matchups. There's a lot of CC available to this composition. It's going to be Techno JJ in trouble. Tyro's moving in, gets his Reap pack working, but not enough damage to take down Techno JJ. Able to save himself with that healing flask. Now Fnatic 1-0 up.
Yeah, and now Kavalifar, a little bit behind the lane, does have a big wave to farm up, should be able to take his time with that one, actually stall things out a little bit, which is going to make it so that Netalet needs to be careful about stepping too far forward. And there is that kind of balance you want to have within the lane between where you're stalling it and when you're actually being pushed under the tower and being pressured. This is a Celeste. Techno JJ will be able to push the wave as fast as he wants.
Stun combo onto Palmatoro there was beautiful by Hegman. Sets up nicely as soon as Palmatoro walks into the Ordained Wars, and SK able to steal away the backs, get some revenge. Netalet gonna move on in, looking for a treant for himself, but he has to be careful. I don't think he can commit to too much else because a very quick recall came out of Tyros and Hegman, and they're gonna spot up Netalet, I think. Can he steal anything? Looks like he'll get both of them. Another 180 gold stolen away from Tyros, and just equalizing the gold taken.
Yeah, actually give them a little bit of advantage. It's only 200, but that 200 feels good for Fnatic, and they've come out with a bang. It looked like SK was going to keep up the aggression they had from last game, but Fnatic answered back with the first blood, and now it's going to be a question as to how far SK is willing to dive into enemy territory. Yes, Tyrus is there. Yes, he's positioning to put pressure onto Techno JJ, but doesn't manage to connect anything, and now you have to wonder whether or not SK is going to get a little over-eager because they feel they can make these plays happen.
Man, this is very interesting at the moment. Kavalifar just about escapes the clutches of Netalet, but Palmatoro walks on in and throws a glimmer shot. Hit his away. Palmatoro on this weapon power Kestrel in the jungle is going to struggle to get to 4 damage items and be super impactful, very different to being in the lane where all the gold income is. Of course, Techno JJ, his Celeste is just so good. almost unstoppable. And I guess for the side of Fnatic, it's Palmator is just kind of providing artillery from the back line.
Ooh, nice getting in wall to disengage that fight, but it's not over yet.
No, it's not. Hegman's in trouble here, and it is going to be Palma looking for the kill. Auto attacks going out. Cavalifar just escapes. Hegman able to escape as well. They are going to push the lane in as quickly as possible and perhaps look to try and get as much damage onto this turret as they can. Tyra is going to have to really do a huge amount of work here if he's going to be able to stop it. Looks like the fact they weren't able to stun up Tyra's is enough for Fnatic to consider to leave the lane, and it isn't going to be a turret take just yet.
Yeah, Fnatic and SK have both been willing to battle hard in this lane. I am a little concerned as the game goes on whether or not Fnatic is going to be able to handle kind of, just hard engagement pressure and just how well Hegman has been on this Grace to get onto the back line. Instantly goes into Benediction, sets up, gets behind Techno JJ and sets up the Holy Nova. Yes, it's been disengaged a few times, but eventually one of those is going to connect. And if that's followed up by an Ordain, if Cavalifar is dealing significant damage, there isn't a huge front line to be able to defend the side of Fnatic and be able to keep those carries alive. And on the other side, Fnatic's real core strategy seems to be based around land the poke, get the siege going, and then force Tyrus to go a little too far forward, because for the moment, this is not a particularly tanky Batiste.
Another Imperial going to land onto Cavalifar, but it's instant aggression coming out of SK. Net2let, can he survive is the question. Fearsome Shade comes out. Oh, the fountain last second keeps him alive. That's going to be Fnatic surviving the initial aggression from SK. Tyra's forced away from the lane. Net2let looking for another Impale. Doesn't connect this time. Cavalifar going to be safe for now, but very much missed opportunity by SK, just out of arm's reach. And unless they can get onto him now, it's going to be everyone walking away. Techno stunned. Techno surely dead. Goes down eventually to Cavalifar. Net2let, I think this time, is dead. Palmatoro tries to snipe from the side. Hegman blocks it, and a double kill goes over to Cavalifar. Palmatoro won't be able to find any return here. Everyone has escaped. SK with 2.
SK sneak behind enemy lines and get away with murder. They're able to pick up those 2 kills in between the turrets, and that was a solid engagement out of Hegman. That's exactly what I was talking about. Now, they did manage to have the Ordain down onto Techno JJ, which put additional pressure onto him. He had to continue to back up, and it's very difficult to stay within that space. The Ordain, just the size of that ability is very, very small, and you have to wonder which one of those CCs are you more concerned about. And I would say that, he was going to get hit by one of them. He made the best of a bad situation, but it did result in a little bit of a gold advantage going over to the side of SK. Momentum in their favor. They've gotten some kills. Maybe as things go on. Actually, that's a Shatterglass finish by Tyrus. They want to fight.
Yeah, they're looking for the fight for sure. Tyra's a little bit slow getting this tier 3 item, but Shatterglass, very expensive item to invest into when you are in the jungle. Eve of Harvest now finished for Techno JJ. 2 items peaked for him. Cavalifar on this Sky kind of this counter to Celeste when she's in a CP format. I wonder how much it's going to really be effective on the weapon power, because I think the reason she's so good to Celeste generally in CP is that she does damage from range, but she also has high mobility to kind of get away from the Helogenesis. As with weapon power, you're a little bit more closer. You rely on your auto attacks. Very different dynamic for Cavalifar to deal with.
Yeah, I think Tyrus is looking for that burst. It's a couple of squishy characters. They want to supplement the fact that Cavalifar
Impale connects.
mostly for time.
Storm. Wow, Hegman dives on in, takes the majority of that Solar Storm damage. Tyra's gonna get a healing. The Fearsome Shade dodged completely by Fnatic. Almost felt like the Fearsome Shade didn't do anything. Wow, another tap from above. Cavalifar just keeps himself alive. Fnatic instantly split to avoid it. SK walking a thin line. Net2let very low, but has the Fountain and the Healing Flask, should be fine.
Yeah, and neither side is able to finish off any of these engagements, despite there being a good Impale. The Cloak Blast was just a half-second delayed because the Death Knell above had come out. Every time that Hegman decides to go in, there's just a little bit more crowd control, a Githian wall to push him away. So, with the exception of that one dive in between the towers, both of these teams are, they're trading punches back and forth, but nobody seems to be able to land a connecting hit right now.
Another Impale coming out of Net2let. This time not connecting, but Techno JJ, look at that. Level 8 Helogenesis. Now in a very good state for Fnatic, and this is where Tyras, I think, will really struggle to actually have huge impact in this game. Batiste into Celeste, very difficult to due to the rain. Hegman trying his best to find an engage for his team, but he's not able to do so, and Tyras once more going to be left out far away from the battle, taking this poke consistently from Palmatoro and Tenno JJ. Impale connects, Kavalava surely dead, Hegman engages, meaning the fountain is late. The Divine Intervention didn't come through, and now it's Tyra's in trouble. Just about escapes, Divine Intervention goes out, but Hegman's going to get impaled on up. One shot won't connect. Fnatic, though, almost taking out Tyras here. The Supernovas onto him, doing so much work, and they're going to look to try and take this turret, it seems. I don't think it's going to take too long for Tenno JJ and Palmatoro to whittle through it. All just relies on them dodging out damage from Hegman. Ooh, and Palmatoro almost loses his life in the process.
Yeah, Palmatoro kind of playing with fire, sticking around. Looked like they might have been able to find an engagement or two, but you know, they've missed the last two one-shot, one-kills, neither of those skills connecting, so it doesn't really break open the structures for the side of Fnatic. They weren't able to finish anything off, and now Kavalafar doing a good job of putting that counter pressure down, so the lane basically been equaled out. Yes, there was that one kill, but pretty much an even game.
Very even. 20,000 gold. 0.1 for both of these teams. Neck and neck at the moment. Kavalafar breaking point now picked up on this weapon power Sky. Getting that attack speed to really ramp up damage. Have to see where else he goes. Went for crit, so he could heavily get that breaking point stacked on up, with the Sorrow Blade doing a lot of damage to his targets. Hegman looking for another re-engage here because of the Fearsome Shade. Netolette going to be stuck in an Ordain, taking damage but able to walk away fairly safely, losing a lot of health. Healing fast won't be available where the fountain is. Tenno JJ sitting on half HP is also a little bit scary. Hegman going to go back on in, but there's a wall of Helogenesis to walk through. SK not wanting to risk their lives to do so. Look at that. Divine Intervention comes through. Hegman going to get hit by a one-shot. Now Kavalafar needing that fountain to stick on into the lane. It's all on Tenno JJ right now with the Helogenesis spam coming on through. Palmatoro in trouble. Loses a lot of his health, but the fountain keeps him alive. Kavalafar now going to be re-engaged on. Walks into the impale, and that's the kill going over to Palmatoro. Tyras comes over next. Hegman should escape, but Fnatic open up the opportunity to take a turret.
SK were so close to being able to find that engagement. They'd gotten the poke continuously. They'd gotten through a lot of the health bars of Fnatic, but Netolette was holding on to that fountain, waiting for the moment that they would finally be able to actually get in there for the side of SK, and the moment that they do, they're able to bait Kavalafar forward, try to dive through the team, be able to put that pressure on the backside of the team fight, almost managed to get Netolette, but didn't manage to finish the job, and, you know, just it's only a matter of time at this point before Tenno JJ reaches that terrifying point on Sky. He's got 3 of those 4 items. Is still sitting on that armor in hand, hasn't built the clockwork just yet, but it should be coming up soon, and I think that this gold miner fight is gonna spell disaster for SK.
Yeah, no, SK did a fairly good thing whilst the replay was playing. They stopped Fnatic from taking the gold miner, reset its health bar, but now they're looking to try and take it themselves, and Fnatic are pretty much prepped, ready to steal it. Hegman diving on in, Kavalafar trying to provide range. The gold miner's not in a position that it can be bursted by SK. They rely on Tyras to do so, but they're able to secure it. One shot helping out. Now Fnatic going to move on forward. Netolette the main target. Palmatoro in trouble as well. Fearsome Shade gets blocked. He's going to keep everyone alive, but Palma goes down nonetheless. And Hegman, diving very deep forward, is going to get impaled and take a bit of damage from the Crystal Sentry, but it's enough for SK to now move back to the lane, and they may even get the opportunity to take this turret.
Yeah, and for the last 5 minutes, it's been SK looking for a fight and Fnatic being unwilling to oblige them, but this is the first time we've had them fighting over an objective that Fnatic wanted just as badly. So Fnatic finally showed up to the fight. Tyras is able to get in position for all of these engagements, which has really been his problem. He hasn't been able to land that Ordain onto a target. And in the earlier portion of the game, they were willing to put that damage down on Netolette. They were willing to throw out what they had and get him fairly low, put him in a position where he had to play a much more careful version of Lance, and Lances never want to be careful. They want to be able to dive into the backline, land the Githian walls, get the roots down. And so that on its own has just made it difficult for SK to find the fight, and now they finally are able to get one. They managed to get the turret, and they're starting to open up the map for themselves. Hegman with a nice juke.
Yeah, but Frostburn stacking up. Hegman in a bit of trouble. 3 broken myth stacks, 4 onto Techno JJ, and means there's no way SK can re-engage. There's one thing we haven't really talked too much about in this game for Fnatic is the fact that Palmatoro on this weapon power Kestrel is just not at a position that you need a weapon power Kestrel to be at. Impale onto Cavalifar could spell disaster, but he has high mobility, he should be able to escape. Only 2 damage items. Realistically, at this stage, when you play weapon power Kestrel in the lane, you can have all 4 ready and available. So Palmatoro's not really outputting that much damage. SK looking to try and execute. Tyra's in a lot of trouble, but oh my gosh, the 50% shade shuts Techno JJ down, and now Cavalifar moving forward, looking for more. Has 13, 14, 15 breaking point stacks. Wasn't quite able to get the 15th. I may have lied there, but it's a lot that he's getting in a very short period of time, and if they take out Techno JJ, Palmatoro, like mentioned, just doesn't have damage to deal with the side of SK, and SK are free to do what they want.
Yeah, he's pretty much down 1 major damage-dealing item. The Crystal Sentry will fall. Cavalifar will steal away the Bat Camp as well. There's a little bit of damage over the wall to keep Netelet on his toes. And, ooh, nice steal away by Palmatoro. So, little bit of a reprieve manages to get one of those camps back, but the items are starting to come in. Cavalifar is working on that tornado trigger. He's going to crank up that attack speed and crit even further. We've got Tyra's looking at a broken myth very soon, has the clockwork in hand, actually just finished the Aegis, so he's getting a little bit more defense, wants to survive Techno JJ's burst for a little bit longer, and Techno JJ is getting towards that, you know, power point in terms of damage. But just the fact that Palmatoro is so far behind, I think, is really costing Fnatic over the course of these teamfights.
And it's also helping out SK because they don't have to invest in armor desperately. They can get their Aegises and then go offensive and get them closer to their damage output spaces they want to be. Tyrus takes a little bit of damage. Hegman gonna engage deep, able to walk away. No, maybe not. Lots of damage onto him. That's a fearsome shade used by Tyrus to get him out alive so they can hold on to that fountain, hold on to the divine intervention. Hegman also has the gold, I think, to finish an Echo. That's a pretty big power spike for SK, and definitely something that SK want to have online before their next team fight starts. Meiji just a little bit off getting it. Very close nonetheless. Should have it in the next minute or so if you can get some ambient gold into his system.
Yeah, and Palmatoro needs that raw damage, needs that burst, needs that crit. So we know that there won't be a Poison Shiv coming out anytime soon. Grace will be able to get full value off of the double Divine Intervention, which just hasn't been the case in a lot of the games that we've seen. This then means that Techno JJ needs to get the burst down, otherwise people are going to survive. And we've seen Tyrus survive way too many times, manages to get the Ordained down. This could be a huge fight.
Huge burst coming through. Look at Cavalifar on the back line. Techno JJ, he survived somehow, but he's surely dead. Goes down to Cavalifar and Netelet, almost following the damage, the breaking point up to 16. Cavalifar a monster on this weapon power Sky, and that's a turret that's going to fall so quickly. 23 seconds on Techno JJ. They're going to look to take a crack in you, Phil.
Yeah, they have the space and the ability to do so. Cavalifar is dishing out the damage. Should probably look to finish the tornado trigger before they do anything else, and actually wants to take the Crystal Sentry off the board, or at least do a little bit of damage to it. I don't know if they want to stick around that much longer. The members of Fnatic are starting to come back up, and if Netelet can defend this, it would be dangerous to be on that portion of the jungle. They will back away. But SK are starting to pick up the pace in this game, getting the damage in there. The tornado trigger is finished for Cavalifar, and it's picking up more crit, either double Tyrant's or probably a Tyrant Monocle. I thought he had one. I was like, double Tyrant's Monocle. It'll be great.
Palmatoro looks like he's going towards a tornado trigger of his own. Once he gets that tornado trigger, then the armor will have to come through. Tyra's already has a tier 1 on his side. The light shielding. Cavalifar does get impaled here. But look at that. Hegman and Tyra's just diving straight onto the backline. Means Netelet can't go forward any further. SK in a very interesting position. If they get onto the backline, Cavalifar is allowed to rip through on this weapon power Sky. It's seemingly being a problem for Techno JJ to deal with. He's got the reflex block, meaning he can't go into armor, which means this crit is just tearing through his health bar. Definitely working out for Cavalifar so far. How SK decide to approach his Tyra's healing up with his passive. Also the Divine Intervention, there's 2 of them now. And the Fountain ready to go for the side of SK. The one shot this time connecting onto Cavalifar. I think SK may just take a break before the next fight starts. Though Impale connects, Hegman manages to go back, but this is terrible for SK, not what they want. Able to just about escape the Solar Storm, but a moment, I think Fnatic to start up this Kraken and bait another fight.
Yeah, never back in the lane, never back in vision, never back while looking at the shot. That almost was terrifying for Hegman. And now that Fnatic has started up this Kraken, they're doing it very, very quickly. The steal is going to have to come in from Hegman. He's going to need to get the CC down. Cavalfar's coming in.
This goes over to the side of Fnatic, but the fearsome shade, Palmatoro almost losing his life. It's Cavalifar solo him through. Divine Defense keeping him alive, but he gets bursted down. Giphian War, and now Tyra's one shot connecting. This is terrifying for SK. They've thrown their lead, and Fnatic with a double kill. A Kraken gonna start to try and turn this around.
Disaster has struck. It looked like Cavalifar was going to be able to solo through the enemy team. He was leading the charge for SK, but it fell short once they got too close to that Crystal Sentry. Too much damage came in, and now with this Kraken, they should get at least the 2 turrets, maybe a 3rd. They could maybe even consider going for some of those Crystal turrets. They may be willing to back up, take away the Crystal Sentry from the side of SK, consider pulling back. No, they want to go for it.
Yeah. I have to see if they decide to commit. Palmatoro going to get some healing from the Treant. Tyra's able to get straight onto Tenno JJ. He is dead! Completely taken out now. Palmatoro has to stay alive. It's going to be Hegman charging him forward whilst Bumper looks to take down Net2Let. Palmatoro struggling to survive against Tyra's, and he falls, and that's the ace coming through for SK. They still have a Kraken to deal with. It will be one Vayne Crystal turret going down, but SK wins the fight.
Yeah, that's a pretty key fight for them just in terms of finishing out some of their items. Doesn't really give them that much position. Looks like Fnatic would have been willing to back up. They lose the 1 turret, but I think that might have been inevitable. Maybe the fight goes a little bit better for SK. They pick up those kills a little bit faster. Don't need to chase as far. We'll get to look at this one more time, though. So as the members of Fnatic go further in there, the fact that Palmatoro was split from the team, yes, they didn't necessarily know that, but then Tyrus instantly comes in, gets the Ordain, gets the Bad Mojo down, and just so much initial damage. The Fearsome Shade forces Palmatoro out, and they're able to just split up and finish the job. And Net2Let's not going to get away from Cavalifar, and the other 2 are able to chase down instantly onto Palmatoro. Now, SK, they've made back up that slight gold lead, but really it was about clearing out the positioning, and now they can set up to either gank out of a brush or maybe catch somebody in rotation.
The one thing you have to remember in Vainglory, the hardest place to fight is in someone else's base because it's so open. No walls, no obstacles when you fight in that big open area, and that's what allowed Tyras to flank on in. Net2Let, he's trying to stop them from going back. It looks like it's just Fnatic doing a desperation play. They did this yesterday against Mouse, sorry, but Net2Let loses his life.
I don't think this is going to work.
From Fnatic, Hegman's already back. They have to turn back. This is disastrous for Fnatic. A desperation play gone wrong indeed, and Fnatic going to lose their lives. This could just be the end of the series. If SK can move on in, death time is at 50 seconds. The Kraken, she hasn't quite spawned, but here she comes. Up the pit she goes, and SK gonna look to try and take it.
A shot calling disaster of the highest caliber. They didn't need to do that. Fnatic easily could have played this slower. They could have looked for that fight. And yes, Net2Let looked to stop them, looked to stop those backs. But even if you have those 2 characters doing significant damage, yes, Palmatoro's finally caught up on his Kestrel. Yes, it's Celeste. She does massive damage to pretty much everything in the game at this point. You have to think about the fact that Cavalifar is outputting huge amounts of damage. Net2Let isn't going to last that long. Even if Cavalifar was the only one to sit there and deal with them, at minimum, the 2 other members of SK are going to be able to back and are going to be able to defend that play. So I don't know why Fnatic, felt that pressured to make such a heavy play, and it might have just cost them the finals in week 1.
Man, this is, as Fnatic's analyst Keygaza said on Twitter, a desperation tactic that didn't work out in the end. His words against Mouse in the game that they lost, that was exactly what he had to say about it. Seems like it's another desperation tactic that didn't work in the end, but Fnatic how desperate could they be? It seemed like they were in a position where they could win this game all of a sudden. Now SK moving in with this crack, and look at Palmatoro struggling to survive. Cavalifar though needs that divine intervention, and he will get it. The fountain comes out as well to keep him nice and healthy. And now it's SK moving on to these Vein Crystal turrets. Techno JJ needs to do some work here. Hegman just buying distance so Cavalifar can survive, but he's so low, needs to be so careful. Another divine intervention comes out, but Tyrus will lose his life on the back end. If SK lose their lives, this could be GG here. The Kraken cannot take the Vein Crystal down. Oh my goodness. It looks like that counter base race is on, and Fnatic gonna move down the lane to try and finish this game for themselves.
I think Fnatic have got this. I don't think that there's enough time. You can send Netelet in to tank up the turret. You've got more than enough damage to Techno JJ and Palmatora, and despite Fnatic throwing this game back to SK overcommit on the dive, I think that Cavalifar was just a little out of position. He was looking to try and find the damage, but was forced to kite around the bottom side of the Vein Crystal, and this looks to be Fnatic about to win this. I don't think Hegman has enough crowd control to finish it. He doesn't.
It doesn't. It's the attack speed slow coming out, but it just doesn't do anything. Incredible that despite a significant error coming out of Fnatic, they managed to turn this back around. Desperation tactics not needed. They managed to win out in the end. Our series tied up 1 apiece. We're going to a game 3.
That was just... I don't even know. I have no words. Take it to the desk. I've got nothing left.
Right, well, we're going to a game 3 on this one. Fnatic managed to pull it out of the bag. A last-second Kraken hold turns everything on its head, and then they managed to pull themselves back on in, end the game. I can't believe what we just witnessed. My name is Munchables. I'm joined once again by Tasty Bacon and Iraqi Zoro. Guys, what on earth did what just happened right there?
We just saw an incredible back-and-forth finish. It looked like Fnatic was going to be able to take it, and then all of a sudden SK holds at one of the most crucial times, turns it around. It looks like SK is going to finish, but then they can't close it out with the Kraken either. Absolutely crazy end to what was a phenomenal game.
Yeah, it's just the teams are miscalculating how much they can do and how much they can go for, and that's how throws happen. Fnatic first tried to attempt to backdoor while Lance was supposed to stall the team of SK, but he couldn't. He just died. So SK recalled, they defended, then they pushed with the Kraken. And when they pushed, there was no reason for them to go and try to end the game. They could have just taken 2 turrets and backed away because they still could have won team fights, but they chose to try and end it.
Well, I thought Season 7 was over, but this was absolutely a game of throws. Let's take it back to 19 minutes into that game where there was the first fight over Kraken. Fnatic starting this one off.
Yeah, this was one where Fnatic, while they had the advantage, you know, the Kraken was very close to actually being stolen here by SK. Hegman just had to go so deep that he's below half health before this fight even starts. But then all of a sudden you have Cavalifar chasing onto Palmatoro. Looked so good, but the kiting into the jungle, into the quarters, this is what Fnatic had to do. They had to draw the members of SK to fight in the areas where they wanted, and when they did that, that's when they were able to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, for Cavalifar, there was no reason for him to be so up alone on the front end of the team fight. He was chasing the Kestrel, but he was all by himself. The team, Fnatic, just turned around and killed him. SK didn't quite play together, and that's why they were losing those team fights starting at mid-game.
Yeah, and then immediately after that, we see Fnatic push with the Kraken, and things start to go a little bit south for them as well, and SK managed to pull themselves back on top.
Yeah, this was... I was a little bit curious as to why Fnatic decided to back away from this one. Obviously, Palmatoro wasn't quite comfortable with how much health he had, but then the team ends up being split, and instantly Techno JJ gets deleted. Very heads-up play by the side of SK to recognize that they had the opportunity to jump in, and they weren't going to be going onto any of those active camo traps. So they win that fight and are able to stall the game out just a little bit longer.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of those awkward situations where it's not necessarily Palmatoro's fault for not being there. It's more of a miscommunication between, like, if you're going to back away, then all back away. If you're going to stay, then all stay together. Now, there was a pretty awkward moment for Fnatic where they tried to go for a backdoor play. Things didn't really pan out for them. Sorry, talk me through this one.
This is the one that I was talking about. Lance was supposed to stall SK for as long as he could so that Kestrel and Celeste can finish. They have amazing objective damage, and they could have taken that turret down very fast in the Crystal afterwards, but Lance ended up dying way too quickly. SK recalled, and they were able to defend the attempt, and it was Honestly, Fnatic didn't even need to go for that. They still had the range advantage. If they continue at team fighting, they would have won the team fights if they played it correctly.
Yeah, they still had the team fight advantage, or they still had the range advantage. They'd still been winning the team fights except for when they were split. So like it's a time where they went for what's typically a desperation play when they weren't in desperate times.
And another desperation play that happened was right at the very end of the game. SK tried to finish things off with the Kraken. Was not meant to be. Fnatic turned that fight around and then managed to push things through, get onto that Vein Crystal, finish the game off. Honestly, it's very surprising fashion. I was all but sure that SK had taken it with that Kraken push, but everything seemed to go south for them.
Yeah, I mean, they just didn't need to attempt to finish the game there. They're still, like, both teams could have won the team fights. It was just about who could execute better and who could play to their win condition better. SK still had a lot of damage while Fnatic had very little armor, especially against the Sky. So if SK managed to get on the targets they needed to get on, they could have killed either Kestrel or Celeste very easily and won the team fight so likely. While on Fnatic's side, as I mentioned earlier, if they use their advantage, the range advantage, then they could win the team fights. So again, both teams going for desperate plays when they didn't need to. It ended up working for one, which is Fnatic. All
right, well, we're into the draft for the next game in this series. Blackfeather and Celeste going to be banned away, taken off the board on that one. Now Glaive going to be the first lock-in of the draft for Fnatic.
And this Glaive has been heavily prioritized in the series. We've seen it banned away a few times. Now going to go over to the side of Fnatic. Likely going to end up with Palmatoro. He's the one who has been playing it for this team. But there is that possibility of flexing that you have to keep in the back of your mind.
So one thing I noticed in last game is that Grace delayed her echo by a little bit. And because she delayed her echo, went for the Crucible second, mid-game SK started losing team fights. If they are going to go for the Grace again, they need to prioritize getting that echo so that she does have twice the heals from her ultimates and she's keeping the carries alive.
Yeah, there's not many power spikes in Vainglory that are stronger than a Grace getting an echo. Being able to provide 1200 healing around the mid game, even more than that once you get later on and have the infusions running and things of that nature. So it's really important, as Zoro just said, to make sure you get that echo very early on. I like the Idris ban here, making sure that it doesn't go to Kvalifar because he's been so strong with it, and the Idris Grace combo has just been devastating thus far.
If SK does go for Sky here, I think that's completely fine because last game it did work well. They did have a lot of pressure and they were getting advantages from it, but it was about how they played afterwards. Instead, they're going to go for the Scarf. This is a safer pick. It works very much like Celeste, especially with the Grace. It's a strong late game carry with long range. You can just keep poking and keep sieging, and I think it might work really well for them depending on what Fnatic ends up drafting.
I think Fnatic should go for the Catherine that's still available. She has slipped all the way down to the second rotation of picks on Fnatic's side, and having the Glaive and the Catherine, you can then also take a Celeste and have three. Celeste.
You could just take a Baptiste and send Glaive into the lane. You've got Glaive, Catherine, Baptiste if you really want it right now.
Exactly,
and
it's
very good point.
All three ways to take out the Scarf ultimate. And that's what's key. When you're up against the Scarf, you need to be able to shut down the ultimate. Fnatic have the opportunity to do so.
We'll see where they choose to go with this one. Obviously, also the weapon Sky could be available quite good into the Scarf because you can dodge those skill shots and avoid away from the Holy Nova. We'll see what direction they want to go in with this one. What are you feeling is likely in this one, Zoro?
I would really love to see the Catherine Baptiste, to be honest, just because Tetno JJ is a great Glaive player too, as we saw earlier. And then probably on the side of SK, they might go for the Cruel if he goes through here, because he is a great... He has a lot of good synergy with Scarf and Grace. Catherine comes through. Is it the Baptiste? Let's find out.
Really, I feel like it should be. Like, it's such a strong duo. It works so well into the Scarf. You can do so many things, and it is going to come through. So Fnatic, I think regardless of what SK picks as their final pick, I feel like Fnatic has won this draft.
We'll see where SK are going to go with this one. Obviously, Cruel still open, as you mentioned before. Blackfeather taken off the board. Glaive's already locked in. So this pool of weapon power junglers shrinks as you get later in the draft.
Here's something. One of the only strategies that can counter the Catherine Baptiste very effectively is a long poke, long siege composition like the one SK has already drafted with the Scarf and the Grace. Why? Because when Fnatic's comp gonna want to engage on you, and if you already have that distance, you can just kite back. If you get silenced, just run away, don't fight them. So if SK doesn't pick a jungler that needs to engage, if they play to their win condition like they did first game by picking double CP and kite back, this would work great even against the Catherine Baptiste.
Yeah, something like a Samuel could come out that would fill in those shoes, play that double CP. It's going to be a crawl that they go for in the end, though. They're wanting that stun, wanting to be able to fight back somewhat. We'll see how this one's going to work out for SK. Honestly, Fnatic feel like they've got an incredibly strong composition coming on through. So my question to you guys then is, if you're Fnatic, how do you get this Echo Baptiste and the Catherine Baptiste, online? How do you get to a point where that's going to win you these team fights?
You just be somewhat cautious in the early game. Be wary of rotations. That's the thing. If Scarf rotates down into the jungle, that's when SK can win the early game. But if Scarf is in the lane, the Baptiste Catherine should be able to win out early against the Grace Krull, because Grace doesn't have a whole lot of health, will have the benediction to be able to get that holy shield, but once that's down, you can just melt through her in an instant, especially with a Baptiste throwing out those bad mojos. When you get those 4 soul shards, you do so much damage even in the early game.
I actually disagree there. I think if they played 2v2, Krull is a great dueler, especially with Grace, because she has so much strength early game. I like SK's composition better. I expect them to win.
All right, we'll see if they can pull this one out. It's one apiece between SK and Fnatic. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter. It's time to get into the last game of the European Vainglory8 this week. Let's pass it over to Dowsy and the Source.
Our analyst desk is split. Fnatic 1, SK 1. You've got the rosters on your screen. Palmatora, Techno, JJ, Net2Let, Kavalify, Hegman, and Tyra's. Source, what an exciting game 3 we have before us.
Yeah, and I'm surprised we got to this game 3. Last game looked like SK was going to finish it out after Fnatic made that misplay on their shot calling and went for that desperation move. And then in the end, Fnatic were able to battle it back and managed to take it to a game 3. Let's see whether or not they feel more confident in this composition and can execute it to a higher degree and finish things out, or will SK hold firm and finish the game that they could have finished last time around.
So much CC on Fnatic to lock down a single target. Merciless Pursuit, Ordained, Afterburn, Double Blast Tremor, Fearsome Shade. The list goes on, it seems. There's going to be that middle treant secured, and Tyra's going to start to feel that CC. First Blood goes over to Techno, JJ. Hegman going to get knocked back to a disastrous position. Will he be able to survive is the question. Pops his boots, does get out safely, but already that is that CC lock that a Baptiste Catherine offers, and when you pair a Clay with it as well, it's a very scary thought to consider.
Yeah, the crowd control just combination that comes out of Fnatic. It's also very fast and very difficult to deal with. Once the afterburn CC is there, if the Ordain is already down, you can't really dodge the Ordain. You have to block it when you leave it. So if you're being instantly comboed into that, or if just the initial Merciless Pursuit stun is there, all of this crowd control is going to come out at you very, very quickly, which means it's going to be on Hegman to either have premier positioning and be able to stop all of those plays from happening, or whether or not Kavalifar is just going to be so far back in the defensive lines that they can't even get to him. Yes, Tyrus needs to be careful about stepping up to some of these plays, and wanted to go forward for that. Didn't manage to get the steal.
Yeah, the steal allowed him to make the aggressive move. He has the healing already. Has to be careful about going this far deep. There it is. Double stun comes out at the same time. Don't really want to stack up your CC like that. It's much better to use it to layer it as one CC wears out. Lay down the next one, and you can just lock up a target indefinitely. Make it so that they can't reflex block anything. Currently, you have to wonder how SK are going to be building these heroes. Kind of feels like Tyros might even have to build himself a Crucible in this game if SK are going to have any hope of blocking up what will be the Double Blast Tremor and a Fearsome Shade.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to see that. I think, 2 damage items should be enough for the Krull, especially if he's surviving the entire fight. he's no longer the target, or at least is tanking things up enough. Hegman gets the Echo earlier on, so we're looking at that double Divine Intervention around the mid-game teamfights. I think that works out for him. And he's bullying Palmatoro out of the jungle. He's doing a good job of being cruel and stealing away as much jungle as humanly possible. They rotate everybody in here to secure this, and I think just as a team, if SK can survive that initial CC punch that comes out from the side of Fnatic, they have more than enough damage to win the fight over the course of a long fight.
Oh, that's a huge upturn onto Cabalifar. There's no way he gets out of this alive. He goes down, but they manage to take down Techno JJ. As a response, SK very swift in their revenge to get back after losing their laner here. 1 for 1, a fairly decent trade for SK, means they don't lose out on too much. Now they're going to head on into the backs. Cabalifar going to share up some golden experience, as does Techno JJ.
Yeah, getting Cavalifar a little further forward in that build is looking for the frost burn first from those items. So wants to have that slow be able to kite, but again, they have to survive that initial damage. If Cavalifar is the one who's completely engaged on, it doesn't matter how much slow and kiting potential he has. And Techno JJ has proven that he's an incredibly good glaive and has been able to land afterburn after afterburn.
And this is a very tough matchup. SK, I'm surprised when Araki said with such confidence he thinks that they can win this, just because of the absolute dominance that we've seen come out of the Batiste Catherine setup. But what we've also seen is SK's brilliance when it comes to kiting, allowing the Scarf to survive. Wall treads, I think, another priority for SK. One for Hegman, one for Tyrus again, just so that they can get out, get back in as soon as Cabalifar has stacked up his Broken Myth, because if that Scarf is allowed to stack up damage, able to get to a decent Broken Myth level, then there is an opportunity for SK to be able to out-damage Fnatic.
Yeah, and I like that they're sending Hegman up into the lane to kind of hold it. He's going to be able to get some of that experience, maybe pick up a little bit of extra gold as they consistently rotate Cabalifar into the jungle to get that additional farm, that extra gold going so that he can get further into those items. His Frostburn is done. Pretty much one major item has been completed on every single player in the game. Tyrus has that tension bow. Maybe we see some of those big plays you can get out of a Cruel once that first From Hell's Heart comes out, and we see that big explosive team fight, as both of these teams have massive team fight ultimates.
Yeah, huge team fight ultimates. Valifar's Dragon Breath, it'll be very difficult, I think, to execute this game, just due to the Fearsome Shade, due to the stuns available as well. Makes me wonder if he'll max his group instead, more for the kiting ability that it can provide, knowing that the Dragon's Breath may not actually get its full usage. Either way, currently the gold 1,000 in the favor of Fnatic, and they're continuously pushing this lane in, threatening SK, really calling Tyrus up to the lane to provide safety for Cabalifar.
Yeah, it's a struggle for Cabalifar to be able to actually get value out of the Dragon's Breath, like you were saying, because he wants to be at slightly an odd angle so that a lot of that crowd control that would normally be stacked on the group's team fight isn't going to be hitting him. But at the same time, if he's too far out of position, he has to walk a very, very fine line as to where he can be to get the value out of the ability, but not be so far away from his tank that Hegman won't be able to show up and protect him. We still haven't seen an engagement just yet from Tyrus. He's been holding that From Hell's Heart. I keep waiting for him to throw that out at Techno JJ, but they haven't been willing to commit to it.
We'll have to see when they do decide to engage rather than defend SK. Maybe the Hell's Heart going to be used more of a defensive tool this game, rather than the offensive that we sometimes see from the Cruel. Currently SK forced away from these minions under the turret. Valafar missing out on 2 last hits there, however, we'll be able to get the rest of these, and there is a CS lead for Techno JJ. Got himself 14 CS in the lead for, is starting to ramp up a bit of an advantage for this glaive, and means he's getting closer and closer to that very scary moment. SK instead going to substitute this by giving the backs over to Cabalifar. He gets extra gold, gets those last hits back into his system, and the moment it's all about the scaling for SK. Get Cabalifar to 3 damage items.
I'd say they can probably look for a fight around the second one once that sustain comes in for Cavalifar. It's possible, but they might look to fight here on the gold miner.
Going to be the Spitfire connecting, but unable to steal. Goop onto Net2Let. Tyrus has that Hell's Heart. Palmatoro with the Fearsome Shade knocks 2 back and stuns up Tyrus. Net2Let is very low, still holding on to his Fountain. Has the Crucible in hand as well. Techno JJ, lots of damage available. Going to have that Tension Bow online in just a little bit. Great block comes out of Net2Let. Well timed to stop that from Hell's Heart impacting him. Now SK going to just be forced to push up the lane.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair cooldown to trade out. At this point in the game, it's a level 2 from Hell's Heart. It's about 60 seconds compared to the 40 seconds of Net2Let's Crucible. So easily willing to trade that out, you know, time and time again. But maybe they finally find the engagement on the Palmatoro.
No, they do, but Net2Let joins. Hegman disengages. Great Holy Nova onto Techno JJ, stopping any re-engage coming out of Fnatic there. SK holding on to their wits about them. Cavalifar going to be going towards a Clockwork as his third item, not wanting the Broken Myth, really wanting to be that late game carry threat and have those scoops. As well as the Spitfire is available as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think that's an okay move here because they haven't been able to actually find the long sustained fights. It's been a lot of poke, a lot of poking and prodding, lots of farming. So getting the Clockwork out now, maybe he can just, you know, win the siege poke fight. He won't be able to build up all of those breaking point stacks if the side of Fnatic is unwilling to take a hard engagement, which is interesting. Fnatic, they have plenty of crowd control. They've got that poison shiv finished onto Techno JJ, which means they're cutting off the sustain from Tyrus and from Hegman. So there's more than enough potential for them to take these long and slow fights. I just think maybe Cavalifar wants, you know, he wants more groups, he wants more kiting.
Yeah, he's almost there as far as Clockwork is concerned. Tyrus has his Tension Bow, the Blazing Salvo, and the Aegis, so he can tank up the damage output Palmatoro has there. There's the silence coming out though. Cavalifar should be able to escape. Tyrus will get hit with the Fearsome Shade. Nice. The stun comes out. That's Palmatoro almost dead. Can they get the kill is the question. The Divine Intervention keeps Tyrus alive, and 1 over to SK. They strike back and they find themselves the engage they need. Cavalifar's Dragon's Breath have been so impactful so far this entire day, and now Tyrus, he wants Techno JJ Afterburn off cooldown for another 6 seconds. That forces Fnatic off this turret. SK should be able to secure this. Yeah, that was a great block to be able to stop the Fearsome Shade from, you know, cutting Cavalifar's Dragon's Breath short. They're now going to be able to transition onto the gold miner, pick up a little bit more gold, even things out. It's not a huge advantage for the side of Fnatic, but it is there, and this will mitigate it even further. Cavalifar should be close to... No, he only has 100 gold. He already shot... Or no, he's got more than 100 gold. He has 100 CS, and now has that Clockwork finished. And SK, they are playing this almost picture perfect. So far, so good. The gold practically even as we speak. Is that Clockwork now finished for Cavalifar? Tyrus looking for a breaking point as he finishes his tier 2 armor as well, just to tank up everything that Techno JJ is throwing at him. And you look at Techno JJ, he's going towards a Tornado Trigger probably, or a Monocle. Most likely that Tornado Trigger for the extra attack speed and crit that he can output. Very scary threat Techno JJ will be for Cavalifar and Tyrus alike. Eggman going to have to be on point with his CC and his healing.
Definitely think it's a huge danger for Tyrus because at this point, yes, he's got, you know, some defenses in there, has built up some tankiness, but only really has that finished tension bow. Is working on a breaking point, but that won't be here for a little while. Actually, no, he'll have enough gold for it soon, but I don't know if he's going to be in a position to be able to go and shop for it as his team is looking to siege Cavalifar, getting that value out of those goops and Spitfires onto the turret, and just firing out Spitfire after Spitfire. It's basically not on a cooldown.
Yeah, and look at this. Echo's now being completed for Net2Let, as has the Broken Myth for Palmatoro. Palmatoro, very surprisingly, opting in for a Broken Myth before he gets Clockwork, which means that he can ramp up damage in teamfights, but he doesn't have the most efficient way of outputting damage when his heroic perk Reap stacks up. Once you get those 4 stacks, you can with a clockwork output 2 bad mojos, and that's when you get the most damage. So it's going to be a while until Palmatora really hits that key spike on Batiste, and that's something that SK can work with. With the Echo though on net to let, Eggman have a really hard task of blocking up. You almost have to think that maybe SK's members have to block the second silence themselves, or the Fearsome Shade. For Cavalifar, definitely the Fearsome Shade will be something he focuses on, but I think if Hegman is able to block things up, truly could be the MVP for SK in this final game, and their hopes of taking week 1 of the autumn season.
Yeah, Hegman has been a key player in pretty much all of SK strategies. Yes, they put a lot of faith in Cavalifar to carry the team, but they trust that Hegman is going to be able to step up and keep him alive, keep him safe, and has done a very good job of blocking out a lot of these skills over the last few series. Question really becomes, what is Tyra's going to do to be the X factor for the side of SK? Hasn't landed a massive from Hell's Heart, hasn't been able to, really rampage through the jungle like a Cruel can when they get a little bit ahead. Hasn't been a menace to the side of Fnatic just yet. Where is he going to be able to position within the team fight to be able to make things happen for him?
Low and steady is the game for SK. Cavalifar now working for that broken myth. Fnatic very hesitant to pull the trigger as of late. Haven't looked for any engagers. Had the Echo finish for quite some time now. Surely seems they're scared of SK's ability to weather the storm that's been thrown at them. Definitely showing a lot of respect to Cavalifar and Tyra's ability to turn fights and Hegman's ability to keep them alive. Hegman now has that Echo on the Divine Intervention. Means there's extra healing, damage reduction available as well. Fnatic slowly gaining some ground in the lane, but they find Tyra's the question. Stun him up. Tyra's moves back on in. Net to let. Not really gaining anything for that. Merciless pursued, and once more SK find themselves back at the turret, clearing the wave and poking it down. Spitfire after Spitfire. They're going to get this eventually. It's just like water on a rock at the moment, Source, chipping away at these objectives.
Yeah, and this is that kind of mid-game interlude moment where the decisions are not that clear. You have to look and find those opportunities, and I think that Fnatic is a little scared. They remember what happened to them last game, and they remember what happened to them in game number 1. They have had a lot of trouble figuring out how to make their engagements work. They are going to start off on the Cavalifar. Maybe this is the one.
Yeah, this is it. Palmatora burning away. The Divine Intervention comes through. Tyra's onto Techno JJ doing work. The Dragon's Breath. Instant afterburn to stop it up. Can Fnatic turn this around? They've lost Techno JJ. Tyra's, he's still alive. It's a double for the European jungler. And now chasing down Fnatic's net to let whilst Cavalifar pushes the turret. I don't know how Tyra survived so long. The Kraken's going to be started up. SK looking to take it all.
It looked so good for Techno JJ in that fight. He made so many moments happen there. Where Dave comes out, forces out the first block from Scar, so you know that there's the ability to be able to cancel him. You can see that Tyrus and Techno JJ are just dueling in the middle of that amazing afterburn to cancel out the Dragon's Breath. It looked like it was going to work out for them, and we actually see another kill going over to the side of SK. Hegman and Cavalifar hunt him down. Down goes Netelet, and in comes the Kraken. They even have a few more members here. Maybe they're going to be able to find a couple of catches.
Yeah, the Broken Myth's now finished for Cavalifar. Look at the damage he's outputting. The Fearsome Shade's blocked up. Palmatora, who's dead. Holy moly, SK burning through Fnatic. They've got the Kraken. They've got staggered death timers as well. Netolet's going to respawn, but Palmatora won't be up for this choke point defense. SK showing up huge here in the finals of the autumn season week 1, looking to remain the European champions against Fnatic. It all came down to one game. Oh no, Hegman's dead! He had Fountain available! This is disastrous for SK. Let's see if they can turn it around. Tyrus onto Techno JJ. Cavalifar stacking up that Broken Myth. Techno JJ taking a lot of damage, but Netolet, he looks like he will fall, and he does. It's now jungle and carry versus jungle and carry, and Cavalifar has 6, 7 Broken Myth stacks. First turret under siege by this Kraken. It's burning under the goop. Palmatora needs to find an opening, but he's not going to be able to easily. Trying to do so now. Kavalava has no block. No, he does, but he bursted on down, and Tyrus as well, losing his life in the base. The ace will come through for Fnatic, just about surviving, but can they stop this Kraken from taking the Vein Crystal turret? It's going to get close, but they should be able to do it.
TechnoJJ is putting in overtime in this matchup, has been able to do so much damage, got that initial kill onto Hegman to start things off, basically stagger things out and make it so this could be an even fight, manages to make a great play with Palmatora to just get Fnatic back in the game. They've managed to even out the gold. They took down the Kraken. That was an extra 500. Now there are turrets up. This is free gold sitting for them on the map. These crits are massive. 400 or 500 damage per crit coming out from TechnoJJ. If they can manage to get onto Kavalifar or at least burst through Tyrus, because this has just been a battle of who sustains longer, TechnoJJ or Tyrus. Tyrus has won every single one of these fights, probably due in help from Hegman, but it has just been duel after duel. And I don't know. I'm highly surprised at how well TechnoJJ is making this work.
Yeah, no, it's incredible so far that this series is so close between these two teams. In the previous game, Fnatic held their wits about them, despite some desperate tactics, managed to counter-throw against their opponents. Now, SK only sitting 600 gold ahead of their opponents. Back in the summer season source, first place and second place was hotly contested between these two teams. It all came down to a third place decider match in week 7 as to who would be representing EU in Los Angeles as Europe's first seed. Now, it looks like these teams are back at it again, wanting to be first seed in Europe. The week 1, currently, both these teams have a fighting chance of doing so.
We're in week 1. Let's keep that in mind for how intense that this one series has been. If they continue to meet each other, I definitely think that Europe's just overall skill level is going to continue to rise and become a bigger threat to North America. Tyrus is now rotating through the jungle, looking for something. I thought he might actually want to engage that, but the Kraken was started and disengaged, and Fnatic, they don't want to have another throw on their hands. One was enough for one day.
Man, this is insane. Kraken just being the bait for both these teams at this point. SK now finding some grounds to move up the lane. Palmatora on the side and Netalet coming in as well. Netalet in the middle, but Kavalifar manages to block. Divine Adventure comes through, but the silence is there. Fearsome Shade knocks them back. That's going to be the Dragon's Breath cancelled. Can they turn this around? Another Divine Adventure. Tyro's onto TechnoJJ. He gets smited off the fold. Palmatora falling. It's a double for Tyro, stepping up 8-2-0. And this might just be it. Source SK are going to move towards the base.
They can do it. They have enough time. It's only Netalet that is alive. And this time, TechnoJJ falls to Tyrus. He loses the duel. It was a valiant 1v1 attempt off on the side of the jungle, but this looks like SK will be taking home the win. They will be winning week 1 of the Vainglory8, and in spectacular fashion, despite the overcommitment in the last game. They have shown that they are a dominant team, and Kavalifar, Hegman, and Tyrus are a great roster for this squad.
Incredible stuff from SK. Araki Zoro on the desk believed in the SK win, and the SK win came through. They managed to do it despite all the odds, despite a Batiste, a Catherine, and a Glaive. The CC lock, they come up trumps. SK going to be Europe's autumn season week 1 champions, going to take that pole position here in this first week. Looking good to try and secure perhaps a world spot at the end of the season. Incredible gameplay from them. Let's hear what the desk has to say.
Thank you very much, Dowsy and the Source. Excellent commentary as ever, and that is going to be SK Gaming taking the title this week. My name is Munchables. I'm joined once again by Tasty Bacon and Iraqi Zoro. We're going to break that game down a little bit more as SK did a phenomenal job. We finally see Tyrus kind of come online in that game. He's been fairly quiet this week comparatively to K-Vol, but definitely in that game, 8 kills to his name to 2 less. I think he deserves a little bit of a round of applause there.
Yeah, really strong play on this Krull. It was able to make the plays work. It was a lot of setup by SK, a lot of really technical play through these team fights from them, but you have to outplay a Baptiste-Catherine combo, and it was just really smart positioning all the way throughout.
Yeah, I mean, this clip shows exactly what SK were doing with sieging and constantly poking, not getting out of position, so that when Fnatic engage, they're able to just kite back. In that team fight, Grace ends up stunning Catherine out of her first silence. Great glaive afterburn by TechnoJJ to knock out the ultimate, but it still wasn't enough to get the team fight. SK and TechnoJJ falls first. SK cleans up the team fight and wins it, and goes to take the second turret.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful team fight. Honestly, from both sides there, like the afterburn was absolutely beautiful. It wasn't enough to win the fight, but like across the board, that was an incredible mechanical team fight. And then the following fight was kind of a 2v2 situation around the Kraken, and this was so important for Fnatic to actually stay in the game.
Yeah, they really needed this one. Otherwise, the game would have just ended a lot sooner than it did. But when they went into this 2v2, you can see the glaive getting those big crits, the AoE hitting both Tyraz and Kvalifar, and that was crucial. If he wasn't getting those crits off, if he wasn't getting the AoE damage, then very likely this game ends up being over at that moment.
Yeah, and not too long after that moment, the game did end up going over. It was SK that managed to finish the job, and we do have a replay of the final fight. Zoro, talk me through it.
I mean, this one is another one where this actually, the silence and the fear both lands, yet still, because SK at this point are so much stronger with Scarf have scaled to his full build, you can see that Fnatic don't have much to do. You have to run at him, and Scarf is so good at kiting if you have to run at him, because the Spitfire will definitely hit you, and then the goop comes down afterwards. You can't run past that.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like a matter of Dragon's Breath, which is what you usually look out for on Scarf. That got denied in a lot of these fights, but it didn't matter because they had to keep on trying to get on into that Scarf. And the Scarf was played by Kvalifar. He's going to get the MVP for this one. Obviously, Tyraz, he did make a run for it in that last game, but I think across the series and across this weekend in general, Kvalifar has stepped up to a level that we didn't see from him last season.
I mean, Kvalifar, while his score didn't show it, he did such an amazing job of not getting caught out of position at all. And against Fnatic's composition, that was so hard to do because you got the afterburns, you got the Ordains and the Catherine stuns. On top of that, he had a 100% kill participation throughout that game. That speaks volume to how well he did.
Yeah, it was just the positioning, and in the previous games, he had been, carrying pretty hard. In the game that they lost, he still looked really strong with the weapon Sky. So that's kind of, it's the full body of work across the entire series, not just the scoreline. If you go just off the scoreline in the last game, obviously that one would have gone to Tyraz, but it was the way that Kvalifar has played throughout the entire series and throughout the entire weekend really has been truly phenomenal.
Yeah, he's been doing an excellent job this weekend. Let's take a look back over the course of this weekend and what's been going on across Europe right now.